Watch how Trump's energy secretary is cornered and tries to weasel his way out of the promise that he made that gas prices would drop below $3 a gallon.
If I asked you when gas prices would go under $3 a gallon for regular unleaded, you said, quote, in the worst case, this is not a month's thing. That was 6 weeks ago, so we're still within the weeks realm, but we're 2 weeks away from the month's thing. When do you think it's realistic for Americans to expect that gas will go back to under $3 a gallon?
I don't know. That could happen later this year. That might not happen till next year. But prices have likely peaked, and they'll start going down. Certainly with a resolution of this conflict, you'll see prices go down. Prices across the board on energy prices will go down.
But it might not be under $3 a gallon until 2027.
Under $3 a gallon is pretty tremendous in an inflation-adjusted terms.
Okay, so first he says prices will come down with the resolution of this conflict. We don't actually know when the resolution of this conflict will be. This war has had no negotiated exit, no timeline, no endgame that anyone in the administration has been able to articulate. So how are you able to promise that prices are going to come down when the war ends if you can't say how or when the war will end? They say maybe 2027, but it is currently April of 2026. So the initial stance from the administration was you'd see gas prices drop to $3 a gallon in weeks or maybe a couple months, but now all of a sudden it's going to take 8 months at minimum. Maybe. We don't actually know for sure.
The energy secretary said that Americans could be stuck paying more than $3 per gallon of gas until next year. He had earlier predicted that would sort of end this summer. What does this mean to your constituents? Because he also said that they've managed this situation fantastically. Is that how you see it?
They've managed the situation fantastically. They started a war that nobody wanted and didn't even figure out that Iran was going to close the strait. I mean, they have not managed anything well whatsoever. And for the American consumer, we just can't afford higher prices at the pump. I mean, no one around here is saying, oh, I have the room in my budget to pay more on gas, to pay more on heating oil, to pay more for electricity. But that's where this is all headed. Prices are going up at a time when Americans can't afford basic needs. I mean, we throw billions of dollars around Washington all the time. 200 doesn't sound like that much. Let's put this in concrete terms. For the average American taxpayer, $200 billion is about $1,400. So if I go to anyone in the United States, whether you're a liberal Democrat or a MAGA Republican, and I say, would you like to pay $1,400 out of your checkbook to pay for a war in Iran? I don't think anyone's going to say that's a good idea.
The Trump administration is so insulated from normal people that they're really saying they're handling this conflict fantastically. Over and over and over again, we have seen them come on TV and be unable to answer when the war is going to end, how the war is going to end, when prices are going to come down, but they think they're handling the conflict fantastically. And let's talk about the astronomical amount of money that's going towards this. $200 billion of your taxpayer dollars, $1,400 a person. That is a car payment or a couple months of groceries or your kid's daycare, all going to a war that nobody asked for. Meanwhile, that $200 billion could be going to literally anything else. This is the same administration that cut your Medicare and your Medicaid and your food assistance. But somehow there's $200 billion to fund a war abroad.
Americans are truly at one of the worst cost of living crises we've seen probably in modern times. And it is being driven not only by inflation and things happening in the broader global economy, but the fact that the president has taken us to war. He's spending our taxpayer dollars on bombs, and he's put into place a tariff regime that has driven up the cost of everything. In fact, I literally just went grocery shopping before I came here, and I bought about half of the groceries I normally buy for the same cost. And that's happening to everyone.
The Trump administration has continued to make choices that have increased the prices that you pay. Each decision here was intentional. It's not like we're dealing with forces completely outside of our control. Trump decided to implement tariffs that increased the prices of literally everything. Clothes and groceries and strollers and cars, all of those prices went up. And if that wasn't bad enough, he then started a war that first of all wasted billions of dollars of taxpayer money, but then also increased the prices of flights and utilities and gas. And the energy secretary just told you that this might not resolve until 2027 at the earliest. That is 2 more years of war prices on top of tariff prices on top of an economy that was already squeezing people before all of this began. Representative Stansberry just went to the grocery store and came home with half a cart of groceries. That is the Trump economy in one image. But she mentioned a little bit about tariffs, so let's talk about what's going on with those right now.
Tariff refunds are supposed to start today. Who's getting them and who's not?
Yeah, there's a big process for this, and it's hard to extract them because you don't know if you're paying the illegal tariffs, right? If you get that money back, or if you paid legal tariffs, right? The Supreme Court only overturned some of President Trump's tariffs, not all of them. And so they say, the Customs and Border Patrol say that they need about 60 to 90 days to kind of figure out whether you paid an illegal tariff or not. And who is they? Who is due a refund? There's about $166 billion out there in refunds that are going to go to American businesses, but not just any business, not, Costco and Walmart and retailers. It's actually the importers that are going to get that first. And so the question is, if they get a refund, are they going to refund the retailers that paid them for the higher prices? And then are you ever going to get a refund? It seems unlikely. Don't count on it, and certainly don't count on it anytime soon, because there is a lot that needs to happen before we get there, Wolf.
So the Supreme Court struck down some of Trump's tariffs as illegal, which means Americans overpaid, which is what we have been screaming from the rooftops for months. And apparently now $166 billion in refunds are owed. But are you actually going to see any of that? Here is a journey that money needs to take before it ever reaches you. First, Customs and Border Patrol needs 60 to 90 days to figure out which tariffs were illegal. Then the refunds go to importers, not you. And then the question is whether those importers pass down those refunds to the retailers that they charge higher prices to. And then finally, maybe theoretically, the retailers will send you the refund, since at the end of the day, you were the one that paid higher prices at the store. Does this sound familiar at all? Money at the top and promises that it'll eventually trickle its way down to you? This is so unbelievably frustrating because not only did grocery stores and retailers charge you higher prices, they're now going to get money back, not you. In Trump's economy, it is always the businesses and ultra wealthy CEOs who come out ahead. It is never you. And let's not forget that these were tariffs that you should have never had to pay in the first place. Trump implemented higher prices for literally no reason, and turns out they were illegal, and there is still no relief coming for me or you or for any normal person.
Right, Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. We now know he's $4.5 billion at least wealthier than he was when he came into office. He is the swamp. I also think increasingly people feel, and we talk a lot about the Epstein files issue around this table, people feel like there's a different set of rules for the wealthy and the well-connected, especially in Washington. And our effort is going to be to take that to the voters between now and November. I think it can be very powerful, and it cuts across party lines. It's not a partisan issue. Democrats, independents, Republican voters across the country fed up with the corruption of the Trump administration and some in Congress.
So while you're paying more for groceries and gas and utilities and healthcare and childcare, and the list goes on and on and on and on, Trump is $4.5 billion richer. That is not a coincidence. This same tariff regime that emptied your wallet created business opportunities for people with the right connections. And the same war that spiked your gas and utility prices is making someone else very wealthy. And those Epstein files that the Trump administration promised that they would release sit quietly shelved away, while the ultra wealthy and the powerful people listed in those files continue to live their lives without any consequences. Trump promised to drain the swamp, and he didn't drain anything. If anything, he made the swamp bigger. This is not a Republican or a Democratic issue. This is an issue with the billionaires in the Trump administration making sure that they come out ahead, Trump making sure that he comes out ahead, while the rest of us lose.
Republicans had to spend $3 million, Elliot, to defend a ruby red district. That's $3 million that's not being spent somewhere else. Elliot, you wrote something on April 17th in which you said the president's job approval in our current era of high polarization has become less a signal of presidential performance and more a signal of partisan identity. Most Republicans are not willing to tell a pollster they disapprove of the president unless he does something truly beyond the pale, but they can express their concerns in other ways. I don't know what counts as truly beyond the pale for you. The fight with the Pope, the swearing on Easter, the war that nobody seems to understand we started. What in your opinion is beyond the pale?
Look, I think the real thing to focus on here is that Donald Trump every day is reminding the American people why they have a negative opinion of him on average, right? Of course, he's not running as president in the midterm, but as your your quotes from these Republicans underscore, most of the press coverage that is about the Republican Party is about Donald Trump, and that shapes voters' perceptions of him. And that's going to give the Republicans a really hard uphill climb to hold the House. I think they probably won't do it. I'd put that at like a 95% chance. And it means they're going to have a tough time in these close toss-up Senate races as well.
So, Cornell, on April 12th, you said if you're a Republican running for anything in 2026, it's time to hit the panic button. That was a long time before a lot of the tomfoolery that we've seen in recent weeks.
Republicans and people in the Trump administration stood by while prices went up and cheered and defended tariffs that raised those prices and voted for supplemental assistance for a war that cost $1 billion a day. And they said they're handling this conflict fantastically as gas prices skyrocket and utility prices skyrocket and nobody can afford anything. And now they're somehow surprised that voters are turning against them? Americans are tired of being last. Every time there's a decision between funding a war and funding something to make your life better, the war wins. Every time there's a choice between a tax break for someone worth $4.5 billion or making your groceries affordable, guess who wins? Guess who they choose? We need to constantly be talking about the fact that this administration cut $1 trillion from Medicare and Medicaid and $500 billion from food assistance, but somehow found money for a war abroad, somehow found money for tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. And now that we're at the midterms, those decisions may finally come back to haunt Republicans who are running for office. The thing about Trump and his administration filled with millionaires and billionaires is that they are constantly insulated from the direct impacts of the decisions that they make. They are not the ones paying double at the grocery store, or dealing with higher energy bills, or getting their health care cut, or paying $5 a gallon at the gas station. The only consequence they will feel is in November when they lose their elections. You have to make sure that they feel those consequences.